Welcome back to Live. What is it good for? Today we're going to be diving into the world of parenting, or as I like to call it, the longest unpaid internship with zero training and a constant performance review from a 15-year-old who thinks that you just don't get her. This is more going to be for parents or people that are in this with me, but you may feel, okay, I don't get this. I don't love this. I don't like being a parent. I want you to know you're not broken. You're not alone. You're like me. We're trying to survive this. And maybe this might even resonate with some people that might be considering starting a family. So I hope you enjoy this, and we're going to get really brutally honest at times, so bear with us.
Yeah. Well, for the record, I'm not a parent. I do have a degree in human development, and I've spent the last decade working one-on-one with really thousands of families. My perspective in this episode will be more of a host and questioning. I do have a unique perspective of seeing the family dynamics from the outside as an educator, and I will provide my 2 cents every once in a while when we go along. So while I don't know the agony of midnight feedings and a bunch of school pickup lines, I will say I've seen and witnessed the emotional trauma that parenting can have. I've seen oodles of parents sitting in my studios over the year, and they're fighting tears over there in the corner, and something's going on, and they're trying to hide it from the child. They are the adult in that moment, and so I'm eager to share what my perspective is from the outside looking in.
Yeah, and that to me is what makes you the great conversational partner for this, because you see it, you understand it, but you're not buried under it like me and other parents are at times. And So when I start spiraling, you've been my lifeline so many times, literally. So let's just sort of get into it.
Sure.
I wanted to look briefly just at what, maybe the filtered versus the realness of parenting. And by filtered, I mean the stuff we see on social media, the stuff that people portray to us when they're maybe out in public, but you don't necessarily see what all goes on behind the scenes. And I'm not here to hang out dirty laundry, but at the same time, I want to be honest about some of my struggles, because I guarantee you I'm not the only one, even though if you scroll through thousands of friends on Facebook, you may feel like the only one. I guarantee you I'm not. So what I don't see on Facebook is, or Instagram, various social media platforms, the moments of me crying in the bathroom just to get away. I need that moment. I need that space. Or I'm coming back home from school drop off and tears are just coming down because of the tantrum that I had to endure on the way to school. So that doesn't show up on social media, and that is not something that I was even prepared for. I mean, I don't think that when I envisioned having a child that it even crossed my radar that how real this was about to get. Growing up, I felt like, I know there were difficult times, and I knew that being a parent was not going to be easy, but I just remember so much of the time hearing mom oh, my greatest joy was having kids. That's what I knew I wanted to do.
She still says that. She still says that. I get these texts from her, "You are my greatest joy." And I, as a non-parent looking on, I do not understand that, because I'm an accountant. And so when I see a family with multiple children, all I see are dollar signs. And I'm like, and so in my mind, it's like, how is that joy? And I'm not attacking parenting. I just see every child you have, that's another $500,000 to $1 million you're going to spend on that child over the next 12 to 18 years alone. Not to mention what's going to cost for you in college. And then we're talking about what if you have a child like me that has multiple health problems growing up as a child, and so you as a parent I remember mothers having lots of sleepless nights because of me. So in my mind, those things I don't think ever make the they certainly don't make the glamour shots, the Easter shots, the Thanksgiving shots on Facebook.
Right.
They certainly don't. Give me just a minute. I'm so sorry. I have these headphones in. And Siri just kicked in. It's like, sure, I'm going to find that on the website for you. I'm like, who is talking to me? And so I need to go. I was like, there's a third party on this. Who's here? Hang on just a minute. I'm going to turn this off so we don't have that problem again. Oh man, that was hilarious because there's someone listening in. So back to what we were talking about with the things that don't make the cut, so to say.
Yeah. I really wish that sometimes social media wasn't part of the equation, because for me personally, it has been a very difficult thing to deal with, because so many people have become more blunt in their attacks. And I think it's because they get to hide behind their keyboard and just type away, versus I don't know if they would actually come out and say those things to me in person if we were face to face. And for example, Chloe was really little, maybe like 18 months. I was going through a lot of health problems. Jeremy, he has signed up for the military. He was gone. And so it's just me and an 18-month-old. And I signed Chloe up for what's called Mother's Day Out. It's not like a traditional daycare. It's just a local church down the street that had like a nursery, and you could drop your kid off for a couple of hours, a couple of days a week. And that became my lifeline. And I was in a really difficult place physically, mentally. I was drained, and just I didn't feel like I could go on. And I was so ready for that Monday to come around so I could drop Chloe off and have a few hours to just breathe, go take a shower, and not have to worry about the responsibility. Yeah. And I got Chloe ready. We drove to the church, and oh no, it was a holiday. The church was closed. And I just sat there and cried. I pulled out my phone. I couldn't talk to Jeremy because he was in some type of military training where they didn't allow phones. So I took to social media. I vented my frustration of, oh my goodness, Mother's Day Out's closed. I'm not going to get that 3-hour breathing room I need today. Yeah. I got attacked by someone on social media. How dare you say that about your child? How dare you not want to spend every minute with your child? And I'm like, you don't know what's going on with me physically and mentally. Like, I needed that. And so that's just an example of why I've really have had this love-hate relationship with social media.
Yeah. Was that person a parent that said that to you?
Yes. Yeah, she has a couple of kids, I believe.
Interesting. Well, that's a prime example of maybe a parent is blessed with children that are in alignment with who they are as a person, as a parent. I think when I've talked with parents, and they have particularly by the time the child gets in the teenage years, and I'm talking to them as a music educator, and the feedback I've heard over the years was, I never envisioned having a child so different than who I am as a parent.
Right.
Like not just in preferences in life, but personality, communication styles, totally different. And the parents, like, I don't even realize, it's hard for me to grasp this person came from me, because it is so vehemently, violently different than who I am as a parent. And I've had them look at me and say, what do I do? And, of course, I can only give pointers about education and just general tips. Am I talking about being a parent on the day-to-day, 24 hours a day? You know, I think you have to be in the trenches, really, to be able to talk about that. But I think if I were to look on and give anybody advice about parenting, the number one thing you don't think about is that you can bring somebody into the world that is 100% different than who you are. I don't think we have that in our immediate family. You know, we talk about you and me and mom and dad. You know, I am 50-50. I'm 50-50 mom and 50-50 dad. You know, I'd probably say you're 98 dad and 2% mom or something like that. But we don't have a situation where there's a parent and there's a sibling that is 100% entirely different than.
Well, my daughter Chloe would be a pretty close example of someone that's very different from me and Jeremy. There are some similarities. Like I do see, oh, well, she definitely got that from her dad. Or I'll see something that, oh, wow, I'm rubbing off on her in that area. But I feel like she's so different from me and Jeremy in several ways that it has made our family dynamic challenging. And this isn't a reflection on her. I mean, I think it's also a reflection back on me and Jeremy, and another aspect of this is something you're not trained for, you're not prepared for. But I don't know that any parent is prepared for it. Even if you end up with a child that is a lot more similar to yourself, there's still going to be challenges. There's still going to be elements of, oh my goodness, I'm not prepared for this.
Yeah, that's true. You could have someone that's a lot like you, and then it clashes. There's that. I mean, I know the part of me that's like Dad. He and I butted heads a few times. You know, because Dad was so used to having this veneer, you know, this image, and then having his son smart enough to see through that. So, hey, man, you're being a fraud here, and you know, the apple didn't fall far from the tree, and boy, that makes Daddy really, really feeling insecure or seen, I should say.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, that was a nice discussion about the family, at least our family. We'll probably get more into that in just a minute. But you're going to be in the hot seat here because I got some questions prepared that we're going to talk about. I know from the outside looking in, as I've said, I've watched parents struggle with, you know, the gap between reality and what they expected it was going to be. So let's just go there and what we got here. Yeah. So what did you think parenting would feel like? Let's start with that one.
I really felt that, okay, let me back up. When we got pregnant, it wasn't something that we planned. So it was not something I went in with, okay, I want this and this and this. It was a bit of a surprise for us. And during that pregnancy, I thought that you see all of these really cute photos on social media of girls posing pregnant with friends or their mom. And so I always had like this image of that's sort of what it would be like. But no, what I found out I was pregnant, and I don't even know if I've told you this. The next day, I had an appointment scheduled with one of my specialists, one of my doctors, and he was in the process of trying to figure out some of my health issues, and he told me in that appointment what I was going through, and it ended up that I had Crohn's disease. And so that was a huge hit for me, and it answered a lot of questions, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, doc, you're wanting me to start on this medication, but I just found out I'm pregnant. And he's like, oh, I would not recommend that. And I'm like, well, it's a little late. and pregnant, and then all of a sudden my doctor's telling me, not a good idea. And so this journey starts out already with negativity.
Oh, man.
And struggles because I've got doctors telling me you really shouldn't be pregnant. And not to mention, I'd already been diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis, which had to do with the erosion and fusion of the joints around the pelvic, which...
I can't even say that word. That just rolled off your tongue. Yeah. It sounded like sounded like some type of Greek phrase. I'm like, my goodness, she's speaking in tongues here. No, that's wow. Okay. What's it called again?
Ankylosing spondylitis.
So it's not in your ankle.
No. It's in the sacroiliac, which if you're like around your tailbone, the sacroiliac joints.
I ain't got nothing sacred about me, so hang on just a minute. We're going to bring out this homeschool education of mine. We're talking about something that's sacred.
It's not sacred, it's sacroiliac.
Okay, all right. Just keep on going. I missed that in 5th grade.
I've got my rheumatologist telling me, okay, due to the damage there, I'm already looking at a C-section. And this is
because of the lower back. Oh my. Yeah, I get it.
This is early pregnancy. And so my picture perfect pregnancy's already been shattered at this point.
Wow.
So that was in August. In December, the beginning of December, I practically lose my eyesight. I could not see. I was in so much pain. This ties back to the ankylosing spondylitis. It can attack your eyes. There's a inflammation, and so Chloe was actually due in May, and this is December. And due to the numerous health problems I have, they say, okay, we're going to have to take her early. So she ends up being born in April. So you asked me about what did I think parenting would feel like. I'm already, my expectations are already shattered at this point. And
wow.
Then I get to the hospital to have the C-section that we're having to do almost a month early. And Chloe ends up having to go into the NICU because she's not breathing well. I get to the NICU later to see Chloe for the first time, and I have nurses telling me, oh, you should not have done this. And so here I am, brand new at parenting. I should not have had Chloe. That I should have waited until she was born naturally. I should not have done the C-section. They knew absolutely nothing about me. So day one of parenting, I'm already hit with judgment from these nurses who are supposed to be taking care of us. They're telling me, you've already screwed up.
Wow.
You've already messed up. You should have waited until her due date. And Chloe would not be in the NICU if that had happened. That's what they're telling me.
They said that to the worst person. You're such a perfectionist and such a self-critique individual. So they just might as well look at you.
Loser. Right? Yep.
Loser. And I'm sitting here listening to all these health issues, and I'm thinking about all the long list I've got on my brain about me, the things I struggle with and I'm like, my Lord, we're a walking epitome of the fact that not everyone should procreate. Get your genes tested first.
Yeah, and that is something that has actually worried me because what the issues that I do have are. They can be passed on to Chloe. Yeah. But that's a worry for another day. So day one, my parenting, my expectations are already just destroyed.
Yeah.
I mean, I see so many people that take these little cute photos in the hospital bed, everyone gathered around the new baby. We couldn't even hold her. And I know we're not alone in this. And I know there are so many other families that have gone through worse situations, and their kid is like in the NICU for months. Thankfully, ours didn't last that long. The thing is with parenting is I went in with all the wrong expectations, the wrong picture in mind.
Sure.
You know me, I'm such a scheduler, and so when they're telling me, okay, you're gonna have your C-section on this day, I've got a whole spreadsheet, and I've got like all this stuff documented, and I've got, okay, we're gonna do this at this time, this at this time. Yeah, none of that worked. And so for me, that's such a planner. This was all a big negative experience, which I thought was supposed to be like the joyfulest day of your life, and no, it wasn't. But
well, you raised an interesting point that parenting in and of itself is unpredictable.
Yes,
and I think the adult that goes into parenting without that flexibility, understanding they're bringing life into the world, or we could apply this to people who are wonderfully. I mean, I have deep admiration for people that adopt children. I mean, what a wonderful, wonderful blessing that is, that you are giving of yourself voluntarily to create a home for someone that doesn't have it. I mean, that's a very unique thing, because that adopted child knows you were chosen. You definitely were, someone went out of their way because they wanted to give this to you, and so that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But even with that, you have so many unpredictabilities. My parents could never have predicted that I would be born with a rare bone disease and have lots of problems walking and the other complications that went with that. And so that emotional, that financial, the mental, even the spiritual vulnerability. One of the things that I've witnessed with parents, and it weighs on me what this must be like, because, here I am at 43. I am my father's age when I graduated college the first time. So you can pour yourself into a child for 18, 20 years, and then that child end up being an absolute nightmare. Looking on from the outside, I think there's a huge risk there when you're bringing a child into the world. This child, how do you know this child's not going to grow up and become a serial killer? Even if you do your best, and they're going to make decisions on their own after, as an adult, that are going to reap consequences for them that you as the parent have no control over. And it's going to lead them down a road, and you're going to watch them just self-deteriorate and self-destruct, and you can't do anything about it. And this is what I'm witnessing about this family unit I'm talking about. And the mother is just a wonderful, wonderful, sweet person and kind. And you're like, what? They certainly must not have done, because they produced a son that was fantastic. And so those dynamics really are interesting and intriguing to me as someone on the outside looking on.
Right.
I think I think I could comment on what I envision parenting would be like based upon my experiences as a child. The model I had in my head, the image, was one of that. And of course, we're getting this. I don't want to throw my parents under the bus because no one's perfect. But we're talking about, when I think about my younger years, my parents were really young when they had us.
Right.
My idea of parenting was this is a lot of stress. This is a lot of fighting. This is a lot of negativity. And I think as a child, due to the toxicity issues we had in our home, I know for certain that I had internalized that very, very early on, where I'm the person that's causing that. I can remember moments, or in some way, or as a child, you internalize those negativities and you're thinking you're causing it. So here I go into adulthood thinking about, and this is one of the reasons why I'm not a parent. I just never could envision being a parent because of, well, if you have a child, they're going to be an immense amount of responsibility that you're causing problems in that parent's life. And so looking on, when we talk about these paradigms we develop, these models of parenting we develop from early on, for better or for worse, you as a child had that responsibility to learn from the strengths of your parents and even the weaknesses of it. But I think for me, because of, and when I was really young, there's things you may not remember as much as I would remember, but that level of toxicity, I think, implanted on me that parenting and family connection is not necessarily a positive one. So I'm always intrigued when I run into people that, man, I can't wait to be around my family, our big collective family group. That dynamic scares me because I'm thinking that's just more potential for stress, drama, or negativity.
Yeah.
But ironically, despite that level of maybe at some point in a later episode we can talk about that toxicity that we endured in a respectful way. I have a hard time with children that are our age, and you're going to blame mom and dad for something. No, we're not here to do that. I mean, we can talk about that toxicity, but I'm going to talk about it in the light of my dad himself being a victim. Okay, not necessarily the perpetrator here, but the victim himself.
Well, I found it interesting that us you were talking about siblings and how they come from the same environment but turn out slightly different.
Yeah,
I find it interesting that you and I being brought up in the same environment. You internalize, parenting children to be a negative thing. And for you personally, but I internalized it and walked away thinking I was obligated, that this is my obligation, because this is what women are supposed to do. They are supposed to get married.
And that's a whole different topic there.
But that you were asking me what. I think we may have talked about it maybe in the previous episode as far as what I thought my life would look like. And all I had to go on was the fact, I have a mother that got married at 17 that had you, I think, at 19?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so her role was wife and mother. And that was something she wanted. That is something she was passionate about. I internalized that, this is what women are supposed to do. They're supposed to get married. They're supposed to have kids. I'm sorry?
You'd add in the level of religiosity that so characterized our childhood that I remember there being sermons preached on you are supposed to have children. I rebelled against that. I will say that. I said to myself, and whatever God was listening, I won't have children unless you make me a billionaire. You make me a billionaire, then I'll talk about it. Because I think my taste of parenting was watching my parents struggle so much financially, and that was just the two of us. I can remember when you may not have been old enough to remember this, but I remember where mother would only have enough money for potato soup that week. And when we lived in Anniston, in that little rundown trailer, and I'll bet you I can pull up photos of that. I'll see if I can pull photos up, because I went and found that trailer, several years ago. It was still standing there in Anniston. And I sat outside that trailer. And I looked at it, Najia was with me, my wife was with me, and I began to cry. Because in my mind as a kid, this was a huge place. This was not. This was a small. I took a look at that, and all I could think about was our parents in that condition, that living condition, struggling, because they would get these blocks of government cheese that would come in because we were on some type of program, and it'd be wrapped up in this foil, and then there's time. And, I mean, the conditions we lived in there were not. That was infested with large field rats. They would get on the counter and move those large barrels, or I'm talking about large tin cans of potatoes. They would just roll them off the counter, and it would just on the floor. And so we're talking about the size of a small rabbit. And so we lived in that condition. And so you're waiting for, you're eating potato soup and some milk, and that was it. Now, granted, that's more than what some people have, but I can remember even later on at 10 years of age, where if Daddy had a good week and we had cereal and Pop-Tarts for breakfast, that was a big deal. I remember Mother being very, very... Mother, bless her heart, she was so good at what she did. She had such little to work with. Being able to ration out the milk. And so when I became an adult and started making money, the first thing I did was buy gallons of milk. That's the scene on Friends where Joey is drinking a whole gallon. Yes, I remember when I came to the place as an adult that I don't have to feel guilty about. I'm just going to drink this whole gallon of milk. And that was me, because I remember that. I did a Joey thing. This is where I get my money's worth out of here.
Yes.
The whole gallon. Because we just didn't have that and I can remember, and so when I think about parenting, all I think about that is Mother taking us in that back bedroom and saying, okay, we got to pray that we have enough money this week to get groceries, or to be able to afford things, or be able to afford if you get sick, can you go to the doctor? That's ingrained in my head from a child, and so when I came into adulthood and I looked at parenting, all I saw was that. And I thought to myself, why would anybody, unless they were already in a place, they're well financially suited, why would they put themselves in that position? And then as a third party looking on, this is another thing I don't understand. I'm not attacking parentinghood. We're talking about the ugly side here, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, let's take a young couple. They're in their mid-20s. And they decide to have a child. If you're in your mid-20s, late 20s, you've got student loan debt, you've got car payments, you've got house or rent, and everything else that goes along with that. So you're going to have your child, and if you're lucky here in the States, the mother gets a few weeks off from maternity, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're going to then spend 10 hours a day, up to 10 hours a day, away from that child because you've got to go work. You're away from your spouse, you're away from your child, and so your family time becomes 5:30 in the afternoon to 8:30 at night.
Well, I know some parents are up even later with their kids. I think just from the ones that I've seen, as far as that are Chloe's friends and our friends that have kids, I mean, they're up sometimes 10, 11, midnight. Like, I was one of the few that I knew of in my circle that actually had a schedule. Chloe, she was in bed. I mean, we planned our schedules around her schedule. And I know that doesn't work for everyone, and I do get that. Course. Yeah. But I did not want to be the parent that was up at all hours of the night because I couldn't get my child to go to bed. Yeah. So thankfully, a friend of mine had turned me on to this book before I even had Chloe. And she's like, look, I did this with my daughter. We put her on a schedule, and that kid would go to bed by herself, no problem. Okay. Chloe, she was one of the fewest that I knew of that was sleeping through the night at such a young age.
Wow. Okay.
So I put that out there just to say not everybody is going to be going to bed at 8:30. They do stay up a lot later. I think you may be exposed more to our method that because we were just so strict with Chloe and her getting adequate sleep. But and I know for a fact, even at this age, Chloe's got friends that are up till midnight, and then they have to get up and then they go to school with the same time Chloe does. So they're operating on less sleep.
Jeez.
Which I don't understand how they do that.
Yeah, that's crazy. What was your oh no This is different moment.
Oh. All of this really hit me when Chloe was born. I mean, we brought her home from the hospital, reality setting in. The reality for me was I spent those first few months, where is the joy I was promised? All I heard about, this is going to be your bundle of joy. This is going to be the greatest joy of your life. I had zero joy for months. Yeah. I mean, even up till now, I'm still looking for joy. It is not something I think that comes to you. I think it is something that you have to look for in those moments, because it's not all joyful. I remember so much, even when Chloe was, and this is me getting brutally honest.
Okay. All right.
Chloe was not even a year old, and I was looking into boarding schools because I was like, I have messed up somewhere, because I am not feeling the things that I was under the impression I was supposed to be feeling. I mean, turns out, I was going through postpartum depression, which I didn't know anything about, because that wasn't something that, again, I was trained for, prepared for. I wasn't expecting. I expected that everything was going to be so joyful. I spend so much time looking at myself negatively because I thought something was wrong with me, because I was not feeling the way that I thought mothers were supposed to feel. So, and it's something I still struggle with today, but I have learned to look for those moments that bring those small glimmers of joy and hold on to them.
Yep.
But I was definitely not prepared for that at all.
Well, we've already answered some of this question, but we're going to present it formally here. How did your upbringing shape the parent you are or don't want to be?
I've struggled with this a lot, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm constantly analyzing myself and judging myself of, okay, am I being a good enough parent? But I knew that I did not want Chloe to be scared of me like I was of our dad. And I have so much of our dad's personality in me that... And that was something I don't think I realized until I had Chloe. I didn't realize how much I was like him until I became a parent.
Well, you're hitting on something that I don't know if I've ever shared with you. One of the reasons, besides the real negative experience as a child, seeing the financial responsibilities of parenting, the other reason was when I was in college and just starting to catch glimpses of the abnormalities that were in our home. Because you didn't have anything else to compare it to. You just thought this was normal. And then you're realizing this is not normal. And so I worked as in the library, and I was starting to get books on the family dynamics and human development even then. And that's when I began to realize there's something that was not right. That's all I knew at that point. Yeah. Well, later on, I was taking some classes in pre-counseling, I should say, class, introductions to counseling in general. Yeah. And that was really transformative. Enough that when I got out of college, I knew enough to go talk to our grandmother, Dad's mother, while she was still living. And I said, why I want you to talk to me about Dad's childhood. I want you to talk to me about the home life. And I wish I would have I could find that camcorder wherever. I recorded that session with grandmother.
Wow.
Yeah, grandmother was beating about the bush, not wanting to answer questions. And I remember looking at her and look, I'm 22, I'm 20 years old, and I deserve to know some answers here. I said, Grandma, I've had some education under my belt. Personalities and dysfunctionalities are not developed in a vacuum. There's reasons for them being there. And so Grandma opened up to me. Grandma was sitting there, Grandma didn't have all her teeth. But her lips began to quiver a little bit, and I remember her trying to say the truth about what home life was like with Grandpa. And then for Dad, and without saying the truth, because I was, here I am, her grandson, asking some very pointed questions.
Right.
And that's when I began to have a glimpse of myself that, man, the apple surely hasn't fallen far from the tree, because I can sense the generational angst. I don't want to call it a generational curse, but the amount of anger that I had in me, even to this day, I'm having to uncover how much anger I feel inside that don't even know is driving most of my life. And I'll share this story with people because I need people to understand, if they're listening, this is why my idea of parenting is just really, really is scary. It's why I never did it. And I know I've shared the story with you. After Dad died, Nana, our mother's mother, by the way, was talking to me about when I was over at their house, and I was probably 4. And she was helping give me a bath. I do not remember this, but this is coming from Nana about 2 years ago when she told me this. She said, I was helping to give you a bath, and I realized that you were covered with bruises. And I looked at Nana and I said, "What? I'm covered with bruises?" And she said, "Yeah, it was bad." And so I asked her, "Well, where'd you get these bruises from?" And then you looked at me. She said, "Brandon, you looked at me and said, 'Oh, I have to get whoopings and beatings all the time because I'm such a bad person.'" And I was sitting on Nana's couch when she tells me this, and there was something inside me that was. I just remember the depths of who I was came to the surface. And I was so angry because you're 4. Yeah. And of course, Daddy was young, but what are you doing to a 3 and 4-year-old that has bruises all over him? And then you're indoctrinating him, saying you're a bad person. This is why I remember the conversations early on as with Mother, even Mother. All right, you have the devil inside you. And so we have to get it out of you. I remember the conversations being, "Brandon, we're going to break your will." And being that you're going to be trained to do what we want you to do when we want you to do it, much like you would whistle when a dog comes running. That was Daddy's mentality. Mama tells a story that when I was probably even 2, took me to the barbershop, and I'm scared of the clippers. And I wouldn't stop crying. So Daddy yanks me out of the chair and takes me home. And then he sits there. Mama says she didn't know how many hours it was. And every time I moved without his permission, he'd slap me. And so when I think of parenting, it's hard for me to get past the fact, if that's programmed into me, would I end up being that way as a parent? Because if that's the only model you have, that's ingrained. That's deep. I mean, we're talking in the psyche at 1, 2, 3, and 4 years of age. You don't remember those things, but I guarantee you they're programmed deep inside you. And so when I talk about hidden anger, I have, even to this day, I'll uncover where smallest things can go awry, and I'm just angry. And it is no longer anyone else's burden. It is my responsibility to correct that. But if you're not that self-aware, what happens if I became a parent when I was 22?
Yeah.
I guarantee the apple wouldn't have fallen far from the tree whatsoever. I guarantee those abuses would have continued because I didn't know any better. Didn't know that was there. So, yeah.
Well, I was 25, I think, when I had Chloe. And I knew when she turned, I think it was 2, maybe 2. She did something. I don't remember. I can't remember what it was, but I remember being so angry, and I felt dad in me almost. And I know dad's response would have been, go beat the child. And when I say beat, I mean discipline. But I caught myself, I am not going to have a child that grows up to fear me. I want someone that respects me, but I don't want someone that fears me.
Yeah, I mean, I even as an adult in my 30s, going back home, Najia my wife would always know when we got within about 5 miles from home, I got a knot in my stomach. I am nervous. I'm fidgety, and I was scared of that man to the day that he died. I mean, he had wonderful. We'll talk at some point. We're going to talk about the good side of Dad.
Definitely.
We're not going to harp on this.
Yeah.
But this is so impactful. Oh, I'll tell you another thing. This is me being really honest. I've never thought of myself as being man enough to be a dad. Dad was a 250-pound bear. Dad, we've talked about this. Daddy could pick up a washer machine off a truck by himself.
Bear hugging it.
Boom! Just sit down. I can't even pick up a 2 by 12. You know, we've been there on the job. We've been on the job site today trying to figure it out. We can't pick it up. You know, Daddy just boy, you don't go back to the office. You can't do this. You know, I mean, I weighed 100 pounds till I was 20. And so I think in my mind, even though Dad had his negativity as a parent, I always knew I was protected by Dad. I mean, something goes wrong. Daddy's hands were, I could put both of my hands inside Dad. It was like, did I come from you? Because I'm an inevitable Caucasian Urkel over here. The only thing missing is suspenders and a bow tie. And Daddy just, whoosh, I ain't that way. And so there's this image of what it means to be a dad. I'm like, I can't feel those shoes, because I get a paper cut. I'm taking a week off work, because I got to go to bed. Daddy falls off a roof, breaks his arm, cuts himself, lacerates himself, and then goes, officiates a wedding. And I'm sorry, I don't have that gene because I am not that tough. And so when I think about being a parent, there's these two conflicting images of a larger than life person, and in some cases, yes. How do you pick up a washing machine?
Well, I got an even better scenario. He and I, 4-wheeler riding, he had the largest 4-wheeler I think they made. We're going up this gigantic hill, stupidly riding together, which I don't think you're technically supposed to do. But anyway, the 4-wheeler literally starts falling backwards. So in order to keep from that thing landing on me, I'm behind him on the 4-wheeler.
Yeah.
I end up flipping off backwards. Dad grabs that 4-wheeler, like he's with his legs, with his hands on the handlebars, rolls it onto himself to keep it from hitting me, and he bear hugs that thing all the way down this hill for about 4 or 5 rolls, then throws it off of him. To this day, that vision is implanted in my mind. I will never forget that.
Here's my dumbbell for today, okay? This is my dumbbell. One day I'm gonna put some weights on that thing.
Oh, wow.
Wow, that's it. Yeah, and then manages to limp y'all back to the house. That was y'all 2 or 3 miles away from the house in the woods.
Yeah, he gets up. I know for a fact he broke several ribs. I don't know how many. He gets up. Thankfully, the 4-wheeler landed on its wheels. But, it's so bent up. It's a miracle it started to work. But he walked away from that. He walked away from so many things. He was just unstoppable.
Yeah.
But
well, there you go. There's the image of parenting, and there's good things there, right? I remember when
it just goes to that story just goes to show you what a parent's love will do to protect their kid, even when at times they're not being the best parent
because they're human.
Yes,
right. I never ever thought that my father didn't love me. Never once.
Right.
And so that was what made we're getting into a whole different episode here, which is great. We'll have to continue this later. But the whole dynamics of letting go of trauma, because you see the parent themselves as the victim because they were doing the best they could. So
yes.
We're not talking about a villain here.
Yes. Well, I think back to your question, you had asked, how did our upbringing shape me and what I wanted or didn't want to be. And I wanted to take the good from dad and mom, but I wanted to also acknowledge to myself that I did not want the bad of dad and me coming out with Chloe. Because, and that what that turned into was us having to find a different discipline system than you and I grew up with.
Well, I want to say, you and I, all between the two of us, we had a different discipline system. You had a different dad than what I had, and
only because I saw what happened to you. I lived in fear.
Oh, yeah.
So I was too scared to do anything that would rock the boat, that would cause me to receive the same treatment you did. Yeah. And I do realize that we are different. We had different personalities and we're different as kids. But at the same time, I was very observant. I think that's what shocked Dad later on in life, because he thought I was so ignorant to everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I wasn't. I was trying to survive. Therefore, I modified my behavior to where, if anything, I learned from example of, what not to do.
Yeah. And I think in our parents' situation, this is a prime example of what you don't know can really and truly, in those blind spots about yourself, that can really have some negative impact, or make life harder than what it has to be. And my heart goes out to Mom and Dad when they were so young when they had us,
right?
And no training on how to do this. And so, I sometimes look at those young. I was looking at pictures the other day, and I'm like, y'all had it tough. So let's move on here to some next topic here, some real life confessions. We have entitled here "The Beautiful and the Brutal." And so, talk to me about what you think is hard and. What's the difficult points of being a parent?
Well, what's beautiful about it is you've got this person that, as Dad demonstrated, that you love to the point of you would sacrifice yourself for. Yeah, I get that very much so. Because when it comes to Chloe, I can be very, very protective. Jeremy says I think I'm a bit too protective, but what's hard is that feeling of you've got someone that needs everything, literally everything from you, and there are just days where you have nothing left to give.
Okay.
And no one prepares you for that. No one prepares you for how much you are going to be needed as a parent. And I thought that, I just get through these toddler years, get to where she's more self-sufficient, it will be better. No, it's not. And Jeremy was actually asked this question by a mother at his office. She just had a baby, and she's like, does it get better? And he did not want to admit anything negative.
Oh, wait. Jeremy was put on the spot?
Yes.
Okay.
And he's not really fast with the comebacks, but he was aware enough to know you've got this new mom. You don't want to destroy her expectations here. But the reality is, no, it doesn't get better. It gets different.
Oh, that's a good point. Different set of troubles, different set of
challenges. And that's one thing that I was not aware of. I just thought, I get to the point where Chloe can do X, Y, and Z by herself, and I'm good. No, there's just a whole new set of problems that come up that you're needed for. And maybe problems are the wrong word. It's just a different responsibility that you have to take on.
Yeah. Well, let's bring up a topic here. How do you as a parent maintain your healthy boundary of personal identification without entirely getting lost in the role of mom?
That's been hard for me, because when, back to what you were talking about, you've got potentially parents that work two jobs, or the mom and the dad both work.
The mother has a career.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Jeremy and I, we looked at what I was making. I was working as like a bookkeeper for an engineering company locally.
Okay.
And keep in mind, I mean, I was still very young, and us having Chloe wasn't something that we had quite planned for at that time. We looked at what I was making. We looked at what childcare cost. And it didn't make sense for me to go work somewhere just to pay someone to cover Chloe's childcare needs. Yeah. And so we decided that it made more sense for me to stop working. And honestly, with all my health issues I was having at the time, I'm not blaming this on Chloe. I think it all worked out for the best that I stay home, because I was constantly having to call in sick and missing work as it was. So, to answer your question about my identity, I sort of lost a bit of my identity, and it all became mom, because I did not work outside the home at that time. So my role was mom 24/7. So I didn't have that extra identity that some other moms get to have when they go out to a job. They're like, oh, I'm an engineer, or I'm a doctor, or I'm a nurse, or whatever their role is. Yeah. They have those other titles. Those are their identities. But I really, I think, got submerged just in the whole being a mom, because that's all I had at the time.
Yep.
But I mean, later on, as Chloe got older and my health stabilized some, Jeremy and I, we started flipping houses, and I still cringe some to this day when people I don't know come in. So what do you do? As if I need to have a job in order to be more of a, I don't want to say more of a person, but that role sort of identifies me.
Yeah.
And so I feel like sometimes I have to, I shouldn't say have to, I will elaborate a little bit more of, okay, I'm not just a stay-at-home mom, but I do these other things as far as with our rental properties, with our flip projects. That has definitely brought in more of a sense of identity for me outside of just being a mom.
So we got a layer of false guilt here that I'm not doing enough, because if I just say I'm just a mom, that doesn't come across as being, okay, you're doing anything. And that's interesting that in our society we have downplayed that. Because I think the roles could be reversed. Could easily be reversed. And oftentimes it's where you have a male that is not the breadwinner. That is the stay-at-home parent. And I hate for anyone to have to go through that pressure to think, oh, I have to have something else on top of this, because my looking on at what you do, it's like being a CEO of a tiny, unpredictable company. Mm-hmm. There you are, you're running the household. I mean, when I come over there and there are things lined up in their pantry, and not just shoved in there like crackers in a box somewhere, but things in the refrigerator lined up, and the floor is clean. In my mind, so someone's doing all this work, and I guarantee you, if you or anyone in your shoes was having to be a parent, and on top of working a 40-hour week, your house would not look that way. Yeah. Your house would look like something blew up in there, because you don't have the time to have a place for everything, because you're just surviving at that point. And so I had a few points here that the point of the guilt of not enjoying every moment.
Yeah, that they say, like, I know you've heard it too, how time will go so fast, you blink and your child's grown.
Yeah,
and I have that constantly playing in my mind that tug of war of oh my goodness, this was such a bad day, but yet at the same time grateful for the fact that I get to have this time. So it's a tricky balance for me, because I think I don't know if it's my personality or if it's just because of all of our childhood stuff, that I feel like I am programmed somehow to see the negative, and that I hold on to it. So I have to be a lot more intentional on seeing the positives and holding on to the positives.
Well, that may lead right into the next question. What would you say to young parents who are finding through trial and error that their emotional tanks are completely empty, but they still got to show up?
You're not alone. I don't know if solidarity is of any comfort to anyone, but and I think a huge factor is having a partner in your relationship that you can confide in, that backs you up.
Wow, that makes my heart go out to all these single parents out there. That life has put them in a position where they've got to be both the breadwinner and the parent, and both parents combined, whether they've lost it from tragedy or divorce, or someone who's just left entirely alone. That's a whole different topic there. Let's dive into the... Yep.
Well, I don't know that I give Jeremy credit enough. There have been so many days. I mean, he works, and you know him. He works full time. Sometimes he juggles jobs. Like, he was in the military and doing engineering work, plus getting master's degree, bachelor's degree, or bachelor's, master's, and PhD. So he's doing all of this stuff, and then he comes home. He's like, "Babe, you go have you some you time. I got this." And you ask me what do I do when I get to that depleted moment? I have people now in my corner that I can rely on. And I agree. My heart does go out to people that don't have that, because there's an old saying that raising a child takes a village, and in a lot of aspects it does.
Sure.
And there's been times Jeremy's mom moved down from Asheville down here to be near us, and I know a lot of people are like, "You're okay living that close to your mother-in-law?" And it has been a lifesaver for us, because she would take Chloe on the weekends, or anytime I wasn't feeling well, she would come pick Chloe up.
And her and Chloe are more like in personality than you and Chloe.
Oh yeah.
And so that's good. Yep. We just went down a rabbit trail if I'm not careful. On the issue of when you said that Jeremy was quite supportive. What about those parents that are stuck in just a horrible marriage, and they're at each other's throats, but they've got 2 or 3 children? I was just talking to Nagia last night. You know, we live a comfortable life.
Yeah.
But still, we find life to be challenging, and but we are such a bubble for each other. I do not know how people make it without that support structure. I don't have any advice to give anybody that you are stuck in a dead end marriage. You're 8 years into your marriage. You've got 2 or 3 children, and your husband or your wife you're at each other's throats. My brain just shudders at the toxicity and the hurt that's got to be there for people that are stuck in that. So yeah, I don't have any. I
personally have a friend that's going through that right now. 2 kids, and my heart breaks whenever we talk, and we've had some really long discussions. My advice has been counseling, which they are doing, and even the kids get counseling.
Yeah.
Which is huge. I wish sometimes that parents would be more... Can you imagine had we...
Yes. I don't know how that would have worked. Can you imagine Daddy setting us down? Okay, before you go in this session, don't say this, and this.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Oh, let's move on here. We'll end up talking people's ears off for this rest of the day here. We got a topic. We're going to try to wrap this up in a few minutes. We have the mythical joy topic. Earlier you mentioned mythical joy. Let's unpack that phrase, because parenting is the greatest joy gets tossed around like confetti.
Yeah, and like I've mentioned before, I went into parenthood thinking and expecting this was going to give me joy, this would bring joy, and it didn't. And I used to feel broken for not feeling that. It's very, very overwhelming.
I've heard it said so often, I started asking myself about parenting, looking on, was that really joy? Or is it just cultural programming, and people are so miserable they don't want to recognize or admit to themselves, well, I'm really, really struggling here. So I don't have an answer for that.
I used to think that also, but I'm also the type that I like to be able to look at it square on and not just try to trick my brain to thinking it's joy.
Okay.
But I think for some people they have to, and there, like I've mentioned before, there are those little moments that do bring joy that I think you do have to grab hold of.
Yeah.
But I think on the other hand, you've got the people that say, "Oh, it's so joyful," because I think they feel like they're supposed to say that.
Well, I don't think it's always beds of roses. I have some people on social media saying, there's a 12-year-old girl that's, multiple stages of cancer, going through chemotherapy. We haven't even you in your home environment, you haven't had that experience as a parent.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine what it's like to be a parent, and you've got your little child, and you can't do anything to help them. I would not be in a place to even start commenting on that, but we see it all around us that happens, where people have got to deal with this. Parents that have a child that's born disabled, and I've never heard, and I've talked to those parents. I've had them in my studio where a child was disabled. I don't see in their eyes the sense of, I despise this child, or it's really hard. But every one of them would say, there is some type of great joy that's coming here because there's so much love, or there's so much a great positive here that I see in my child. So I think it may not always be a bed of roses, but it obviously is the greatest mirror, where it's reflecting back to you the best, the worst, and the stuff that we've never dealt with.
Right.
All right, so that's just that's the real joy, I suppose, and not the highlight reel, but the depth. Let's take a look here at number 5. What I wish someone had told me. We'll hit some highlights here. What do you wish someone had told you before parenting?
Well, I like to first state that I love my child very, very much, but I do believe not everyone is best suited to being a parent.
Okay.
And I wish that message was promoted more.
Oh.
And there not being any type of stigmatism again, like as far as if you don't have a child. Because I do have a friend that she hasn't been able to have a kid, and she feels judged sometimes by that.
Oh, wow.
And she feels that she's missing out on something that's special, something that this joy that's being promoted. And so I would love for, if you truly believe that you are well and able to handle the burdens and responsibilities of being a parent, then by all means. But I also would like for parents or future parents to know it's okay not to have a kid. It's okay if you don't want to have a kid. I just don't feel like that message promoted enough.
My wife does not feel like she's missing out. She says she already has a child who's 43, permanently 12. She walked in the other day. She said, "What is wrong with you?" I said, "What did I do now?" She said, take the toilet paper and stick it on the roll. Why do you stick it on the back of the toilet? Stick it on the roll. Don't stick it. I don't know. I really don't know. I try my best, and I just. Please tell me I'm cute and cuddly, because I don't know. So she doesn't feel like she misses out on that because she has me. But I do see that parents. I would imagine parents being in a mode of 90% of the time worrying. If
Oh, yeah.
that you're the good parent and you're caring
Yeah.
about that. So what are some ways that you have coped throughout the years?
You've been a huge way of like. I remember.
Let me call my crazy brother.
Well, I really wish that every person had a sibling that was someone that they could turn to, like I have been able to with you. That has been a huge coping tool for me, because I think you understand a lot of my programming and how I relate to things, and so that there's been so many times I will be locking myself in the bathroom or the closet, and I'm in the floor calling you because I'm having one of those spiral moments. Having a close friend that you can confide in, that won't judge you. I've had several mom friends contact me, and they were at their wits' end. I listen. I don't judge. I get it.
Yeah.
A huge one is I'm upfront with Chloe. I will sit down and talk with her if I'm struggling. I don't burden her with my problems, but if she realizes something's off with me, I sit down. I talk to her about what it's like to be an adult, what it's like to be a parent. Sometimes it's not always easy. But having an open conversation with her, and even going to her, hey, I'm sorry, mom messed up. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have acted that way. But being able to have that open conversation with her has been, especially as she's gotten older.
Well, that's wonderful, because you're developing emotional IQ, emotional and intrapersonal awareness, as it's called. And having been in the workplace, I can tell you it's missing in a lot of people. They as adults are just victims of their own emotions because they didn't have someone as a parent walking them through to identify not only the emotions that they as a child are feeling, but the parent being open enough to say, here's the struggles that I'm having as an adult, and here's the emotion behind it, and here's how we're going to analyze it so it doesn't control us. So I think that's fantastic, and I think that's the work. Not pushing feelings down, but making room for the full truth. And I love the transparency there as a parent, because I think Daddy's mentality was, we don't let them see the truth. We always got to maintain this image that I got everything there, and I can see why, because his dad, based on things I learned about Grandpa. Yeah. But here we are. We're gonna start wrapping this up. This is longer than usual but this has been fantastic. So let's have some closing reflections from you. This is life. What is it good for?
Well, throughout different elements and different phases of life, I've had like all of these thoughts that I would be questioning. I go, why am I here? What's the purpose of this all? And especially on days where you've got a screaming child, they're upset because you gave them a green cup instead of the blue cup. I mean, what is the reason for life?
Yeah.
But I've come to wonder, like, maybe life isn't good for certainty, control, and constant joy. I mean, obviously, we've identified that's not the case, but it's I think more about becoming, who you're becoming and who your child's becoming. Discovering who you are when you get to strip everything away and learning, especially for me, since I have so much of Dad in me, how to stay soft and calm in the middle of the drama that will rise up between you and your child. And finding some meaning, not the perfection, but more just the presence of being in that moment with your child.
Wow.
So I think maybe life is good for reminding us of that, even in the noise and the mess, the exhaustion, that there are still moments that are worth holding on to. Not the big, it may not be a big cinematic moment. It's not, and it probably won't even make it to social media, but the quiet ones, like the other night, Chloe just came up to me and she's like, I love you. And I even have a little post-it from when she was really little. She just learned how to really write. And she's like, Mom, I watch you. You're good at a lot of stuff. I want to be like that. And I still have that post-it. I mean, that's the little joy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe that's what life's good for.
Well, maybe parenting isn't always fulfilling in the way we expect.
Yeah.
But maybe life is good for revealing the true you. You know, not the filtered or the put together version, but you know, the one who does break down in the bathroom that has to call the sibling.
Yeah, right.
And let's go ahead and put a shout out to Jeremy. I know
Yes.
Jeremy has had times where he has got to have said, "What the heck did I marry into?" And he's been so supportive, because you and our relationship is really, it's a unicorn, I think, in the world of siblings. Because I know you've told me Jeremy has walked in and said, okay, do I need to call your brother? And that really is in touching to me, because I love the fact that he doesn't feel threatened. The fact, okay, I gotta turn my wife over to her brother because I don't understand what's going on. So
Well, this morning, I wasn't feeling great. I was really struggling. He's like, "How's Brandon doing?" I was like, "Well, he's been sick, actually."
So we have to have a whole episode at some point about the negativity of having such a strong sibling connection, because when one gets sick, the other gets sick, and it's kind of symbiotic and empathetic. Hey, I think parenting is about still choosing to show up even when everything feels too much. You know, being the real you, the one where your kid will learn the most from: the good, the bad, and even the ugly.
Yep. So if you're listening to us right now, and you're thinking, I don't feel joy, I feel depleted, know that you're not alone. You're not broken. You're human. And being human is the most honest thing you can do for your child.
And if parenting didn't already drain your energy, identity, and bank account, don't worry. Marriage is here to finish the job.
Yes. So next week, we're going to be talking about marriage, money, and the sacred art of passive-aggressive budgeting. We're calling it "Who Spent $400 at Target?"
Don't get started on the stuff my wife orders on Amazon. Lord of mercy, boxes lined up out the door. So we're going to get honest about budgeting, resentment, impulse buys, and the myth of retail therapy.
Yeah.
And the fact, and literally the fact that those Amazon boxes are like gremlins. I tell her, they're gremlins. They just multiply. They get in their water. They're just gremlins.
Well, if you've ever hidden a bag in the trunk until your partner left the room, or questioned how many hobbies one person could actually find, this one's going to be for you.
This is life. What is it good for?